Our guest, Uzma Hayat, is a South African currently based in Wakefield, UK. Uzma is a cancer survivor. Thank you for giving your time to the Women's Chamber of Entrepreneurs. Welcome.
Thank you. It feels different. It feels different, but great to be here. Like different in the sense that everything is done so electronically, and even though that I'm here, we can still connect miles away.
Thank you so much. I guess we just all have to be agile, amidst COVID-19, as well as we're going into the fourth industrial revolution. But thank you so much for giving us your time today, Uzma. How old were you when you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer?
I was 23.
How did that make you feel after hearing the news?
That's often a difficult question for me to answer, because I suppose the most common experience or the most common feeling you'd feel is a feeling of overwhelming, a feeling of anger, a feeling of despair, a feeling of confusion. But for me, it was very different in a sense that I had accepted my diagnosis as something that had come from my creator. And obviously, I speak from a background in faith, a background in realizing and understanding that whatever is in our path, in our plan, comes from our creator. So apart from, the normal feelings of how one would imagine a cancer patient would feel on hearing the news of being diagnosed with a stage 4 ovarian cancer, it was different for me. I didn't necessarily really, go through those stages of the different feelings until my chemotherapy had really started.
What kept you motivated during that time?
I'm going to go back to pulling at my faith as I was grounded in that, accepting that this is my path, this is my plan, this is what my creator has put on my path. I think that was the most important, or the most thing that kept me grounded, was that faith. Other than that, it's, I think, a lot of the family support that we have, or that I particularly had, and that's family, that's extended, not extended family, that's friends. And I think accepting that it's a journey, and we have to walk through that journey, regardless of what the outcome is going to be. We all have different outcomes. Our journey is all different, but I think it's accepting and realizing I am in the moment now. I've got to deal with this now, and travel this journey now.
What were you doing when you were 23 years old?
I was actually just sort of taking a gap year from my studies. So I had finished a qualification at the end of 2013. I took a gap year that I decided to spend on my family. Because I was studying in Joburg, I went back home to Rustenburg. I spent some of that time with my parents, and then my intention was to spend some time with my grandparents, which I had started doing, and then I was diagnosed with my cancer.
What qualifications do you have?
I have an honors in psychology. I did my PGC thereafter, which is a postgrad certificate in education. Then I was diagnosed with my cancer, and then once I was in remission, I did another qualification in remedial therapy, and I'm a specialist teacher now.
Okay, so what does that entail? What does a special needs teacher entail?
I suppose it's quite a broad aspect, but in short, you would work, well, I personally worked in a school where children have autism, difficulties in learning, so difficulties in reading and writing, difficulties in comprehension, mental and physical challenges, children with social, emotional, and mental health difficulties. So it ranges from any diagnosis that affects their learning ability to their physical and the mental challenges that they face.
Now, this is a very important question that I'm going to ask you. Did you ever feel discriminated during a job application or interviews when you disclosed your diagnosis?
Not necessarily when I disclosed my diagnosis, because for me personally, it's a part of who I am. It's a part of my journey, a part of where I've come. So I may not have felt discriminated, but there is a feeling of concern and there is a feeling of worry that when you do disclose this, how is your employer or the person that's interviewing you, how are they going to respond? How are they going to feel? What are they going to think when you put it on your application form, whether it's a question about your medical history or whether it's a question about gaps in your employment, which for me was gaps in my employment. It wasn't necessarily medical history. But I have been fortunate in that both my employers have been accommodative, have been understanding, and have been quite empathetic, which I think is quite important as a cancer patient, because the important thing is that your journey just doesn't really end after chemotherapy, after you're in remission. It still continues. It's a whole lifestyle change. It's how you necessarily need to look after yourself, look after your health. So if you're in remission, it doesn't mean it's done now. So even as a survivor, there are lots of things that you still are concerned about, that you're worried about, and it is important, I think, that your employer is understanding and compassionate about certain things you may, require as surviving this, or as being a patient, or as just being diagnosed.
What tips do you have for females to cope at the workplace whilst having cancer or post-cancer?
I think the most important thing is be kind to yourself, whether you are going through treatment, whether you have overcome cancer, where you've just been diagnosed. Be kind to yourself. Know that you're going to have good days. Know that you're going to have bad days. Those good days are going to go through into your workplace. Those good days are going to be at home. Those bad days are going to be at your workplace, and they're going to be at home too. Acknowledge that when you're having a bad day, it's okay. You are going to get tired. You are going to feel, emotions that other people don't feel. I think what's important is to explain that to your colleagues, to your line managers, to whoever you report to, in a sense. Because if they understand, I think, and if you disclose that, it's easier for them to show compassion. Because if you're feeling like you're having a bad day today, with whatever that might be, maybe it's a chemo day, maybe it's a day you've just exhausted and you've overexerted yourself. If they understand that, I think that's quite important, as well as your colleagues. Your support structure at work. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. So I think apart from having an understanding workspace, be kind to yourself. If you need to take time out, take that time out. Give it to yourself. If you feel like you've had a really hard day and you need to just give yourself that when you come home, give that to yourself, because we have to realize chemo has effects that stay on for a very long time, and you will feel tired, you will feel exhausted, but that's also okay. So remind yourself that's okay. It's okay to be tired, it's okay to feel exhausted. Just give yourself that credit and take the time out, because that is what is important.
Have you considered to open up your own setup?
I haven't while I'm in the UK, but it could be an option when I come back to South Africa, if it's something special needs related, and if I feel it will be beneficial to the community.
Okay, lastly, what advice do you have for females that are job seekers or that are currently employed, or entrepreneurs that have been diagnosed with cancer or are cancer survivors?
I think it would be similar to that question we spoke about.
The tips,
The
yes.
tips. So I think those two questions could sort of be answered in one, in that, yeah, be kind to yourself, know what your limits are, know that you need to still maintain a change in lifestyle, a healthy diet. And if you look after yourself in a holistic manner, apart from your work, I think you'll be more productive. So if you realize, okay, you've really done too much today, or if you feel like, okay, this is not going right, take that time out to recover so that you can then give your all at work. Because if you're not looking after yourself, how are you going to then, give your all to work? Like, does that make sense? I mean, if you're feeling so ill, you're not necessarily going to manage to put your all in when you're at work. So I think that goes hand in hand. Look after yourself, because you've been diagnosed, you're going through chemotherapy or whatever method of treatment, and realize that I need to look after myself. And if I look after myself, I will produce better results in my work environment, regardless of what that might be.
Thank you for the lovely chat, Uzma. You are a dynamic young lady. You have so much potential, and you've given us so much of motivation through your story. And may you go from strength to strength.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure being here. I just hope that I've done justice to your questions.
I think you have. Thank you so, so much for your time.
Very welcome.